Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch or listen to this podcast. It is me, Omar Rashan Borja, the Burger Popper, back for another off-season podcast. I mean, man, the off-season's drawing on, but we're 4 months from week zero. The NFL draft's in a couple weeks, so things are looking bright, and the UFL is on, and the Indoor Football League too, for that matter. But joining me is a familiar guest. We have Marcolm Banks, excuse me, sorry, long day. Marcolm Banks from HBCU Nightly, joining us to discuss a couple of topics. I mean, neutral site games mainly. You guys know my forte out here if you've been on the channel long enough, if you read Redshirt Sports enough, but also other topics going to come into play. Marco, thanks for joining us. And how's everything going?
Oh man, Omar, thanks for having me. Um, I feel like I'm not a guest; I'm a friend now of the show. Uh,
Uh,
as it's being my second occasion being on here. Um, I appreciate what you do. I just appreciate your expansive, inquisitiveness, and you know, always trying to expand the horizons of FCS football and the FCS footprint, and trying to engage newer profiles of people. So, I'm ready to have this discussion about off-site or neutral site appearances amongst teams and programs that normally we wouldn't hear, or in other cases we've had heard in the past, and or wondering what is their current situation.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad to have you on, as I said, and someone that's close to this topic, being a Morgan State alum. So I guess with that, it's
Yep.
perfect lead into our topic. So a couple weeks ago, not sure exactly when, Hampton kind of surprised everyone in the Black college football and FCS world by bowing out of the Brick City Classic and choosing to instead host. They took their ball and walked home and told Morgan State to come and play out at Armstrong, first week of the season. And the reason wasn't clear at first, but then it became clear when Hampton, I think, fully released their schedule that they're playing at Audi Field again for the second straight year. So they're giving up a home
Yeah.
game, playing at Audi Field for the second straight year. And that's an arrangement that's going to last until I think 2026. So that'll be four straight games at Audi Field. So I guess
Didn't know their schools in DC.
yeah. Yeah. So I know you have from the last time you have some strong feelings about school in DC, a certain private institution in the
Oh yeah.
FCS level that's not Georgetown.
Yeah.
Uh so they're playing there for 4 straight years, and I was kind
Ugh.
of shocked. I thought, I mean, honestly, Audi Field's not big, and I'm sure Howard's going to do some gamesmanship to control the ticket allotments out there to ensure that their rivals are boxed out of the Truth and Service Classic. But I just want to know your thoughts on both Morgan State being robbed of the Classic and now Hampton bowing down to the school in DC to play 4 straight years.
Well, I would say smart on Hampton's part, for doing what they did in regards to moving the Brick uh, City Classic. Well, only at this point it's not. I don't know if they're still carrying the name of the game. So I actually, but moving the game, or being able to have the leverage to move the game to their home, it is it, they were able to do so because we had a hiccup in our schedule. One of our opponents had backed out. Fellow CAA foe of theirs had backed out to play an FBS opponent for a money game, which was a home game of ours, and so hence we had to take on a VUL, and we kind of did not want to have another opening of our schedule, which usually at that point in time, it's only slim pickings of opponents, and one of them being uh, the classic case of the Hawaii game, which I'm pretty much certain that nobody wanted from the Morgan community. And so, I get it. I hate it. It is what it is. I just think it's interesting at the fact that uh, if you flip it on its head, I don't know what type of mutual. assurances from a financial stake is between the real HU and the fake one. Um, but I do find it really fascinating that the fact that I think last year out of what Audi Field is like 22,000
Uh,
seats.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, just about.
and then I think what the last couple of years they've only I think last year was their highest attendance. But I think that was about 16,000. So I suppose I mean that's pretty significant. But I'm only assuming that they would stick to that uh foregoing a home and home type of uh situation with their counterpart to get some sort of at stake money, whether that's at the box office, whether that's already kind of part of their contract agreement or whatever have you. Um, but yeah, I find it funny how much pull Hampton has and how much little pull, even though they call themselves champions, uh, the school in DC has. I mean, like you call yourself a two-time champion, yet you can't determine them playing at your home. I mean, unless your home is that trash. That's neither here nor there. I digress on that.
I mean, I'm a neutral party, granted, so I'll play it that way. I'd be
I
always
don't
say that the
know. I don't know
tickets.
with that H in the background.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I
don't
keep
know. I
forgetting.
root
I
for
keep
you.
forgetting. But it's a souvenir. I'd have picked something up. It's not fan. It's a souvenir, just like
Listen,
this is. But
listen. I thank you for your service. And if I was at your home, I would humbly, like, what I'm saying, honor all of your belongings. But like if you weren't looking, I probably would take that thing down and like just clip it right down the middle. You
I mean, it's the least I could get since I mean they didn't have game programs, so I mean, I guess there's your Howard shot. There's me taking a shot at Howard's SID department not
They
providing
don't
game
have any
programs.
game. There, billion. Never mind. We're not doing that. Go ahead.
But I mean, I will say like it's a good ticket making move, and I think like more credit, I guess. Like I feel like it's like credit to Howard for like getting Hampton to come 4 straight years for like I don't know what they're able to pay them because of course
Ironically, the school in DC's fan base, or at least like the donors, are upset at the fact that they can't get the game at Green Stadium. So I hear what you're saying in regards to by proximity. It's DC, so virtually it's a who's home game, but they really want it on their campus, and the fact that they could be that close, but yet so far is kind of interesting dynamic between those two programs. I also find it interesting at this move. Uh, I don't know when Hurricane Sandy happened for you, but that was my true freshman year of college. Ironically, Morgan was supposed to play Hampton that weekend at Yankee Stadium, and they never got a chance to play that game. So, ironically, the last that would have been the last time within that New York metro region that the two schools would have played. So that's virtually what 11, 12 years.
wow, yeah, I've read about that before, and it's kind of sad. I mean, just I
Yeah.
love football, Yankee Stadium, of course. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
and
I,
shout out to your school. You
yeah,
guys are playing what Notre Dame?
yeah, Notre Dame,
You
100th anniversary of the Four Horsemen. I now
in the
have
Bronx.
I have $1,100 worth of Notre Dame season tickets to sell, and my fiance is super upset about that. But it's like I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets.
Awesome, man.
But but yeah, like I mean, I guess this is like the next best thing. I mean, with everything factored in, like Giant Stadium, or not Giant Stadium, MetLife Stadium's too big.
Yeah.
Out in Harrison, New Jersey now, Red Bull Arena is a perfect size. But I just think I feel like they're kind of starting these from the ground up with the Brick City Classic, and it showed last year with like the sparse attendance, which like I was glad that it happened. Glad NFL Network was on site, but I mean the attendance didn't match. Like I thought more people would come, to be honest with you. Than I think it was
Well,
like 8,000.
yeah, I think it was roughly, and I think honestly, Red Bull Stadium or arena is amongst one of the from a capacity standpoint, one of the bigger stadiums in I was going to say FCS, oof, and MLS. Like I think it's around 30,000 seats. I think so. Yeah, definitely sparse in attendance. I also think it's kind of tough to, uh, even though there is a ginormous history with having Grambling uh, playing in the New York, the tri-state region. Um, I I think there's been so many years uh kind of lost. I think that what the last time they played was maybe like 93 if I'm mistaken. I might be wrong, but I think 93 was the last time they played up north like that. And then if I'm if we're being like kind of honest amongst the northern, if you will, HBCUs, at least north of North Carolina, um, you know, Morgan has a huge fan base or alumni base in that region, probably top two. I would say maybe second would be like the school in DC. Probably third would be Norfolk State, and then probably fourth would have been Hampton. So like you're trying to, out of the allotment of schools, um, you kind of chose like the middle of the pack or less, lesser than out of the selection, and I don't think that helps either, right? And that's I'm not knocking Hampton, if you will. They have a proud history, maybe not in recent memory, but in some decades prior, like 20 years ago, they were, I think, almost 20 years ago, they were like back to back MEAC champions, like either 05, 06 or 06 or 07. I might be mistaken. So like, but it's been a while since like they've had that kind of come upness. Um, and so, you know, I think attendance wise, it would have been better this year. Just having us as part of that game, if you want to call us the B side, even though we're probably like the A side in regards to the fans that we were going to bring. But I would have rather played there than Armstrong Stadium, but that's all right. We'll have to just beat them in their own home.
Yeah. I mean, there's always next year. I haven't looked at the non-conference schedules for next year.
Yeah,
Uh, but I'm surprised to hear you say Norfolk State as like the third biggest fan base in the
yeah. They
city.
they have a they have a huge they have a huge New Jersey, New York alumni connection. I didn't, yeah, I wasn't familiar until the last several years of that pipeline of the amount of students they receive from the tri-state region. Um, and it's a strong, especially on the New Jersey side, it's a strong base.
Yeah, I mean, so when I wrote my story for Redshirt Sports about, I guess, possibilities, I had them like, I mean, of course, there are possibilities because Morgan State hosts them, and I guess we'll get into
Mhm,
that later on. But
mhm.
I think the mere fact of like them traveling to Atlanta this year for the MEAC Flag
Yeah,
Challenge
you're
kind of
already losing
eliminates
one.
them.
Yeah, you're already losing one game. Um,
So, but yeah, that's actually like really actually really surprised me because I mean, when you think of honestly, the MEAC's already a small conference as we both know, but I guess when you think of like Norfolk State definitely is not the first program that comes to mind when people think about the MEAC. So hearing them have a fan base like that
yeah,
is
yeah.
actually pretty surprising.
Oh, not this past year, but the year prior in the Legacy QQQ Classic basketball classic, hosted by TNT and Michael B. Jordan. The This was 2023 because they had it for 2024, so technically 2023 just came. Um, it was Morgan, it was Dell State, it was Hampton, and it was Norfolk. And what I mean, if you're looking at like just the crowd that filled the Prudential Center, which is the home of New Jersey Devils, and which is you know literally right across the Passaic River from Red Bull Arena. Um, I mean, it was filled to the brim. And honestly, they did close off a certain sector, maybe about 1,000 or 2,000 seats. It's about a 16,000 seat arena. But honestly, if they allowed that to be open, they would have it would have been filled, maybe even beyond maximum capacity. Because you also had a tremendous amount of folks in the concourses, just you know um, enjoying the concessions or enjoying the small business community trying to sell their little not little but like their products and stuff like that. But when I look at that, the makeup of that crowd, I would say the lion's share was Morgan fans. Second to that was uh, for Basque. I mean, it was for that in that moment it was Norfolk. Third was Hampton, and then fourth was Dell State. So it was like, and we're talking about 16,000, and I'm saying probably roughly half. I mean, sorry, at that time it was like 13,800 about. So, but roughly half of that was Morgan fans, and then probably a third of that was Norfolk, uh, and then you kind of cut the rest between Hampton and Dell State. But I look at that and I try to equivocate that to, okay, well, let's just transfer that over to the football scene. And I think we could have had out of 20, close to 20, out of a 30, maybe 20 up to 22, 23, 23,000 between the two fan bases, just because these are well-known programs in that region. So, you know, and I think, I mean, maybe, maybe it might be a little bit lesser case for Norfolk since we kind of are touching on them already, but maybe a lesser case just because the basketball program is just leaps and bounds, just more uh, uh, popular uh, than their football program. Um, Unfortunately, that's not to knock their football program or say like they're trash and because they're not. I mean, they're all right, but they're not trash. So they know what I mean. But 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 they we probably could get solid 15 to 18,000, I think. Which is a better than the 8K that they had last year. And who knows, you have an interesting game with the bands and the people and the alumni. It could be even stronger. Even grow larger. So last time I know we played uh, the school in DC in MetLife 2014. I want to say it was around 30,000. So that probably should have been a better venue than MetLife itself, but eh, you know, it was definitely at least the if you know MetLife, there's like three tiers. So like the lower bowl was pretty filled out. Not necessarily the next top two, but I think if you kind of could play it right amongst these northern programs, um, FCS wise, you could and not even. I mean, shout out to their rival, D2 Morehouse. They was able to gather 33,000 at the was it the HBCU NY
Yeah.
Classic, either last year or 2 years ago. So it's possible. It's possible. I just think it's more so about who you're scheduling, in regards to a matchup for that region. Like I said, those programs historically have huge alumni bases in that region.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we cover the bases of like Norfolk State.
Yeah.
I guess no need to come back to them, but that is interesting to hear. Like, and I think part of me wants to say, like you said, like basketball being like the driving factor it is, which
Yeah.
like they're the defending CIT champions.
I mean,
I mean,
yeah, people, but people, a big. part of that too is, if you're going back to the era of, the beginnings or origins of street ball, 1970s New York, Rucker Park, this, that, and the third, the connections of Pee Wee Kirkland,
Oh
uh,
wow.
going down to Norfolk and played there. They just it sparked a lot of interest. Plus, on top of that, before he played for the Nets. Dr. J played in Norfolk in the ABA. I can't remember. Lord knows I can't remember their name, but there's cross ties of the basketball of the Northeast region and to Norfolk, rich ties, and so just by those types of connections, also, Coach Jones being from that region, them winning ever since he put Norfolk really, in this millennium on the map by beating Missouri 12 years ago. Like, that, or was it 12, 11, one or the other. But they've gained that kind of notoriety even more so now within that area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So going to, I guess, the first two, I guess, opponents that aren't as likely to be Brick City Classic
Uh-huh.
opponents for Morgan State. Lincoln is fascinating for me because I was excited when that home and home series was announced because the history from 1930 to 1953. I mean, this is an old rivalry. I mean, it makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. You have Baltimore versus Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and but I just don't think that Lincoln has the fan base particularly, or even I think more importantly, more than the fan base, to drum up the local interest to bring fans to Red Bull Arena. So I mean, I'm kind of right. I wrote them off honestly as a potential replacement.
I'd say if this was 1937, it would be great because Lincoln was somewhat decent in CIAA back then. I think because of you know until recently them having some down years, historically speaking, that interest within the region kind of has been lost. Um, and it's well, it's tough in my eyes, I think, to then have people who want to get up to watch a D1 program face a D2 program, um, especially when historically the D2 program was not really good uh, until, like I said, recent memory. Um, unless you're kind of unless the connection is truly beyond the sports itself, i.e., Morehouse versus school in DC. There's more to it than sports when it comes to their rivalry. But I I don't necessarily know if they have not only the uh, fan base but the alumni base uh, big enough within the actual tri-state because it's more kind of localized around the Philly, Delaware, Maryland area. Uh, so yeah, I think that'd be a bit of a reach. I think you'd have better luck if there was a game in Philadelphia. I'm not necessarily saying it should be at the Link or even at University of Penn Stadium, but if it was at some sort of relative 10 to 20,000 seat stadium within the Philadelphia region, metro region, I think that would actually uh, have some sort of solid turnout.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the point there about uh not many people want to see a D1 play a D2 program, and it's like very
Mhm.
rare unless there's like some extenuating like circumstance like it's like with the culture of the schools, like we see with the HBCU and White Classic, Howard and Morehouse. I mean,
Yeah.
cultural, I guess similarities too. And honestly, I mean, Lincoln, I don't want to upset their fan base, but it's like I really don't think a lot of people in the black football community even like think about Lincoln. Maybe that's just me. I mean,
Omar, how
I,
dare you? No.
I, I mean, like, I want them to do well. Like, I love parody, but it's like,
Yeah,
I
no.
mean, it's rough for them because they're a startup, like Bluefield State. They're a startup and
Yeah,
they struggled last year like immensely.
yeah. And ironically, in the old CIAA, our rivalries were between Bluefield State and Lincoln, and during the Edward P. Hurt era, of course, them in DC, but yeah, Lincoln, uh, Bluefield, uh, Delaware State, uh, uh, who else? Man, interesting when you think of these historic connections, especially that being I think the CIAA is what amongst the third or fourth oldest athletic conference in the nation.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Honestly, I didn't
they
know they were
they
that old.
yeah they were established in 1912, so they're older than the SEC.
Oh wow,
Um, I think the Big Ten's older. I think the Ivy League's older.
Ivy
Uh,
League actually like they were established I think in the
Oh,
late 50s like
the late 50s. Well,
officially.
yeah, correct. The conference itself was established in the late 50s, but this group of schools were playing each other historically speaking. Um, I know the Big Ten was actually established early, but yeah. So too was uh, and the SWAC was the other one.
Right. Like 1920, right, for the SWAC or
1922, I believe.
oh 22? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it honestly because I have, was looking at the I forget what the book's called. I haven't looked at it in a while because I haven't
Oh,
like
the
done
the Black College Football Encyclopedia.
not that one, but looking at I think it's like the playing grounds of college football. Like I have it on my
Oh,
Kindle
okay.
every time I want to write something, and it's just like I look up a school and it has like every game played
Every
at a stadium. I don't know how he compiled the research and how many years it took to compile it, but
Oh, that
it
would have took
is.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't envy him. Like I mean, he did the work on the school project for everyone. But looking at all the Negro League stadiums I like that they play that Morgan State and Lincoln played, and it's truly amazing. So it's like I would love to see, I guess, even if it's a one-off game, the series return to some level of prominence. But I also acknowledge that it's like very unlikely.
I, speaking of that, if that I so I think if we were to do that, still keep it in regards to this tri-state region, it would take a lot of I think legwork from the city of Patterson because they would have to shape the field, make sure it's in the right dimensions. But and I don't have my phone, so if you could Google it for me, the name. But it's the home of where the old New York Black Yankees played in Patterson, New Jersey.
Oh,
They had
Hinchley.
renovated the stadium. Um, they had renovated the stadium in the last 5 years. The municipality did of Patterson, and it's for the whole community. But there's a great legacy there. And if it's pertaining to playing, at Negro League stadiums, that I think that would be a very interesting venue. Um, so let me, if you don't mind, I gotta look.
It's Hinchley, yeah. It's Hinchley Stadium, which is like
Yeah, go. Yep, Angel Stadium. Yep.
yeah, it's like yeah. I mean, and I've floated that idea around too. I mean, I really think honestly, if the Brick City Classic's smart, like that would be a better avenue, honestly, to play the history then. Because
Yeah.
honestly, like I love neutral site games, but on my end of the totem pole, it's like baseball stadiums, NFL stadiums,
Yeah.
then older municipal stadiums like your Lad stadiums, your Lad Peebles, your Legion Field, and then MLS stadiums because it's like
Yeah.
there's just like
No.
not much history there.
And
So
I think and I just think in the essence of part of me also makes with the Brick City Classic, I think they would have played um uh at dang it. can't remember the name because they demolished it, but home of the Newark Bears. Uh,
Oh shoot.
I can't remember the name, but it was actually on the other side of the Passaic, facing Red Bull Arena. They demolished it, and I think 2013 or whatever have you. Um, but I think they would have tried to play it there, which I think would have, I think that was a by its end was a 12,000 seat stadium, which I think would have been like kind of perfect because it would have been like a packed house. Um, and gave that kind of ruckus and very intimate feeling of teams going at it and fan bases going at it. Uh, but yeah, I'm not a I don't know I'm with you. I'm not a in how you have your list of venues. I would agree with that. I'm not a fan of MLS stadiums. I mean, unless it's what they're building for New York City FC.
Oh
Outside of that,
yeah.
I'm not you know not too much of a fan.
Even then, I'm not a fan of the whole NYCFC project because it's like what sets these stadiums apart. Like, and I'm sure some soccer stadium connoisseur is gonna come at me, but it's like,
Well, they would say, well, the Red Bull have their own, but you know, I don't know, and I I also don't subscribe to playing at other colleges' stadiums. There's a pride in me that doesn't like that. I know, if you're going by, fan engagement and environment standpoint, it has been successful for certain rivalries. Um, I know A&T and Central did that at North Carolina State for a couple of years. Um, and from both, when I hear about from Dave's perspective, who's an A&T grad, and from Josh's perspective, who's a Central grad and former player, um, I I don't I didn't hear that it was terrible, but I also feel like they also didn't like it from a power perspective because you're taking it away from now their own stadiums. Um, and I don't think that's you know unless you're going to have like at a historic site, like you said at old Negro League stadiums or for a fact it's going to do massive numbers. Um, I think you should have that campus home and home environment.
yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I agree for the most part. Like, I mean, I love my neutral site games, but a lot of these neutral site games don't make sense per se, especially outside the black college football world. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I agree for the most part. I guess going on to the other another school is like not as likely. I want to talk about Merrimack. Merrimack's on Morgan State's schedule.
yeah.
Merrimack will visit Hughes Stadium, and I know a lot of people are dismissing. We'll hear this or watch this and dismiss like Merrimack, and like they're right, for the most part. I will say this, Merrimack draws very well. I mean, that's an excited. There's not many excited fan base in the whole Northeast Conference, and I know they're not in the conference anymore, but that whole region group of schools, but like they sell out almost every game and like they're
I
over
mean,
capacity.
yeah, between LIU, Merrimack, Sacred Heart. I mean, that's kind of your three in the stable type of like solid fan bases. Um, for a venue like Red Bull Arena, because I keep that at the forefront, right? For if we stay with Red Bull, I don't know if it's going to break over 12K. Um, it could. I'm not saying that they won't travel and give their portion of that, but I don't think I don't think even at their zenith would it reach a level of like, yeah, we could draw together 20,000, 25,000 fans, right? I think even, even when we were not our zenith, we could still gather or be part of gathering 20 plus thousand people. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't know if that's the case for 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 Mary Mac. However, I also think that's because that's Andover, right? They're in Andover,
Yes, that's Andover.
Massachusetts. It's about what, a 2 hours and some change to Newark, because
I
they're in
think so.
Western Massachusetts, right?
That's Eastern. Andover's Eastern, about like
So
north of Boston, I think.
so that's ooh wee. So yeah, so that's like pushing really like 3.5, 4, um, because of traffic. Um,
Right.
yeah, I would. So I would. I uh don't think like it would be good to have it in Newark. Uh, and at that point, I don't know if you keep it HBCU centric, uh, as opposed to just being a classic, and then we're gonna have a classic, which is fine. The venue that uh, Holy Cross played, uh, the baseball stadium.
Polar Park. I don't think that game's happening anymore, sadly. But yeah, it's a great venue, Polar
I
Park.
think I think that would be, I think that would
Yeah,
be for uh, a classic or neutral site setup between a Merrimack and a Morgan. Like that would be,
right.
battle of the M's, Maryland versus Massachusetts, Merrimack versus Morgan. Like you could kind of play with it, but like that would be a solid. And I think you can muster not only folks from the northern parts of the northern Mid Atlantic in regards to the tri-state region, but you could gather good, African American fan support within the New England area. And like I said, you can also then bring that great crowd from Merrimack's perspective as well. So I think that would kind of be a good venue. Trying to think of others in that area, but I can't. I'm not really well familiar with New England like that. But yeah, that's where I don't think Newark will be the place though. That's if I'm being honest.
Right. And I mean, I have to agree. I mean, Polo Park is a great venue. I think, I mean, I'm biased just being from
Yeah,
Worcester. And, I mean, my first time back in Worcester after moving in 2011 was at Polar Park. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's an amazing venue. I'm sad that Holy Cross isn't hosting a home game there anymore, but I also understand. I think the charm kind of wore off. But I also do see kind of like, I won't say like the dark side, but the downside of inviting a PWI for HBCU Classic, because I was there at the 2022 Truth and Service Classic, where me and Harvard fans didn't really take it as serious, really. And
no,
Howard fans too were like pretty disinterested at themselves. And I mean, I think that only drew like 10,000. There was a lot of empty seats at Audi Field that day, and it was a casual
yeah.
atmosphere.
And what I would say at the Truth and Service Classic for Morgan versus either Truth and Service or Unity buzzwords. All right, DEI buzzwords. Oops, did I say that? but 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 when we played Yale this year, I would say it was quite the opposite. I'll give Yale credit. Um, you know, unfortunately, the day sucked just because of the weather. But from a coming out of the community, whether it was their urban radio station, um, I think it's W something, New Haven, but their urban radio station. Uh, I mean, weeks in advance promoting the game. Yale itself being very hospitable towards us, and I think what every every break in action, uh, they gave a tribute to either Morgan or Black History moment in Yale history, whether it was in athletics or just from a school's history perspective. Um, and I think you know I think they I'll give them credit. I think they met the moment uh, in regards to the seriousness of the occasion. Um, I don't like how we got our ass whooped in that third quarter, but I think that I think that kind of from a race relations stand. Now let me stop. I'm messing with yeah, I'm just juggling but no, I think they did a damn good job of promoting um unity or being in solidarity with HBCUs and with Black history overall. So I give a kudos to them. I can't speak for the other. Like I said, I appreciate your knowledge on giving that perspective between what happened between Howard and Harvard a couple years ago. But yeah, Yale did a good job, and I'll give them credit for that.
I also think too, I guess just so I talk about like, I mean, PWIs, particularly in the Ivy League. I also don't think like Ivy League fans travel all that well. I look at like all the Ivy League schools and the series of their schedule. The only one that's like really willing to branch out and travel is like Princeton. I know they had San Diego last year. This year they have Howard and they have Mercer, which I don't know why they have any reason to go down to Macon, go down to
Oh,
Macon,
they're
Georgia.
going down to Macon, Georgia.
Yeah, they're going down to Macon for whatever reason. But
Wait,
I also
they're not
think
going to San Diego.
they went last year. They went to San Diego last year.
Oh man, I know. What was that score?
I don't know the score, but I
Oh, I
was
know they
like
whooped
thinking
that
like
ass. I know they
they
whooped that.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
God.
they did. I think they did. Oh, they went to Stetson too in 2022.
Oh,
So it's like
come on, man. Come on, man. Come on.
so it's like I feel like they know. It's like I feel like they want to cater to I guess retirees, like old retirees, especially in those areas that
Yeah,
live there.
well,
And
that's
like
part of the alumni base, so I get it. That makes sense. That makes sense. Ironically, I think the largest game for their attendance is the game itself between Yale and Harvard,
yeah, it
historically
is. Yeah.
speaking. So yeah, eh, I also think it's tough in regards to when talking about Yale. Their venue, the Yale Bowl is like 60,000 seats. So you're just not going to get that, even on your, even if it's a Harvard Yale game, I don't think they're going to, in today's world, is going to pack out 60,000 seats.
It was pretty
Um,
packed in 2019 when I went. Like it was like let's say 50,000,
50?
but the contrast is just it's just a stark contrast like between any other regular season game because like you
Yeah.
look at some of the games like even like Holy Cross like in I guess in their prime, uh like that stadium looked at most like 5% full, like about like 3 4 thousand. And it's kind of sad too because but I mean, I think that's just life as an Ivy League fan. And I think Princeton is trying to like, liven things up, encourage
Yeah.
season ticket holders to, give them, I guess, perks on some of these trips to San Diego, to Orlando / DeLand, Florida, Macon even. Go see Otis Redding's birthplace. If Princeton fans are into that type of thing, which I don't think they are, but
That's a crazy like fun fact of yours right there. Like I didn't know that he's from there.
yeah, I'm pretty sure he is because there's a statue in Macon. Like I mean, when I lived in Georgia, in 2021 for like a few months, I was like looking at like things to do, like museums to visit. And, like there's an Otis Redding statue, so I assume that he's from there. I assume that he is, but
Life of a military man.
yeah.
Things to do in Macon, Georgia when not on the clock. Oh,
That's the
Otis
thing because I
Redding.
have weekends. I had weekends off, and I mean, I visited the Laurel and Hardy Museum. It was just an hour away from where I lived, so it's like I'm a big museum nerd. I mean, what can I say?
I can imagine you playing like Call of Duty and you're just like, all right, I need to get up and get active and do something. Da, 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 da. Oh, yeah, Otis Redding's from me. Okay, all right,
Yeah, you'd be surprised like the amount of random things I did. that's a story for another time. It's like I was like thinking about it too the other day, like it's like the right place, right time. Like I guess this is just like we're like off course, but every year the Shoeless Joe Jackson Museum has a old school rules baseball game from like 1860s rules, and I just happened to be at Georgia at the right time, and like it was just like I think like 2.5 hours from where I
Is he from
lived.
there too?
No, he's from Greenville, South Carolina. That's where the museum was. So I went to visit their
Okay.
ballpark in the summer on a weekend where I had nothing to do, and then I talked with the owner of which I still have his business card in my wallet. In my wallet's like another room, but I talked to him and he's like, "Oh, we have this old time baseball game. We'd love to have you on." Like we're just like talking about baseball history, and then sure enough, like kind of like a Forrest Gump. I mean, here I am playing in a 1860s rules baseball game on
Did you
October
have
weekend.
the did you wear like the old school gear too?
No, so we kind of like we had a t-shirt that had like a shield, like the button type shield from the era.
Oh,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I can show you the picture and everything, but I'm just thinking like, man, like it's a pretty random thing to do. It's like pretty cool but random thing to take part
Did
in,
it feel like normal baseball or was it like, nah, this is different?
No, it was like so the rules were weird. Like you can catch a ball off a bounce, off one bounce and it would be out. That was just the
Oh,
main thing. That was the main thing. So you wanted to keep it on the ground, but yeah, it was a funny. The ball was also hard to hit too. The ball was like very dense. It was like a very very dead ball. So yeah, I mean,
wow. Now
just a
that's
random thing.
crazy. That's crazy. But yeah, that's crazy. That's cool though. Wow.
But
Yeah. Yes. All right. Because I got a million other questions. So I digress and
I
let's go to the schedule.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. Yeah, but yeah, just going back to I guess Encore. So we already talked about Norfolk State.
Yeah.
Morgan State also hosts South Carolina State this year, and like I know, I think I think it's just a tough ask to ask South Carolina State fans to travel from South Carolina to New York, so close to the Thanksgiving season too. So that
Oh.
that there, I just
Have you
don't
ever
think
been to
so.
Orangeburg? Have you ever been to Oliver
Mm.
Dawson Stadium?
I have not, to be honest. It wasn't on my list. Like the fall I was there. For me, I just think the stadium's too new, honestly. Like and I'm a big neutral side guy. So I went to the MEAC SWAC Challenge when I was in Georgia. I
Yeah.
went to the Skeegee Morehouse Classic at Legion Field during the three
Okay.
years of that bad experiment. And then where else? Oh yeah, went to the Crampton Bowl for the Red Tails Classic, but yeah, I never went to Oliver Dawson. I mean, for me, it's just too new. It's like I get scared away by new stadiums.
Have you been to Hughes yet?
No, I have not, unfortunately.
Because technically, I think Hughes is the oldest stadium in, yeah, 37 that it was put up.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Keep in mind the property that Morgan stands on, we bought it in 17. So, it took us 20 years to get the stadium up. And when you get to the stadium, um, the wall that separates the stands from the field itself, those are still the original walls.
Oh, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, so I didn't I didn't know that till I felt terrible. I didn't know that till like midway through my freshman year. I was like, wait, wait, oh, this is history, like, but no, yeah, that's so it's pushing, a couple years, it'll be 90 years old. So
Yeah, that's but yeah, so like I mean, I'm scared away from the newer stadiums, but I mean, I guess your thoughts on South Carolina, like they have, I feel like it's in a kind of a weird way. I feel like a lot of casual NFL fans know about South Carolina
they
State more
do,
than a
they
lot
do,
of
they
other
they do.
HBCUs.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think you'd be more surprised, especially from our uh you know non either HBCU or Black fan counterpart, simply because one of the most famous New York Giants, um, or in that case, two of the most famous amongst the most famous New York Giants, um, Roosevelt Brown being a Morgan State grad and All American. You also have Harry Carson,
All right.
who won us our first Super Bowl and was the famous middle linebacker. And and help groom, the arguably the greatest uh, defensive player of all time in LT. So, you know, he they have a strong history, and that that was amongst Bill Parcells, uh, one of his favorite players of all time. So, I think you would have a lot of Giants fans in general who would be interested in checking out South Carolina State because they'd be like, "Oh, Harry Carson School," and then on top of that, from our perspective, Rosie Brown, and he had a great relationship with the Maras, both during and after his career. So, you know, I think that would actually, um, for the region, I don't know how much of ties it would play into with the Giants itself, but East Rutherford and Newark isn't that far away. So maybe the Maras could be, or John Mara would be interested in providing some sort of uh, cyclical kind of familial loop between the Giants and these two programs to gain more interest and promotion in the area. So ironically, I would give that a better chance than outside of Norfolk than the other opponents that you discussed.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about the pro connections, which it's interesting too. I mean, with Morgan State, of course, Roosevelt Brown comes to mind too. But I want to throw in a Rich Castor reference for
Okay.
everyone watching at
Okay.
home. Rest in peace, Rich Castor. But I mean, with Jets fans too, I'm not sure how many Jets fans have been long suffering enough to remember Rich Castor's days. Uh, but yeah, like I think he's probably one of the best tight ends of the '70s.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, I'm not sure how many tickets like a Rich Castor connection will sell. That's not to put disrespect on his name, but I mean, I hope he
Right. No,
makes the
no,
Hall of
right.
Fame, and
Right.
hopefully he can point back to this podcast in 2024 once he gets finally elected to the Veterans Committee in like 20
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
to
Shout
the
out to
Rich
Rich
Castor
Castor
Hall
and
of Fame.
family. Yeah.
So, but yeah, like that's something I did think about, like the pro. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think though, like I wonder with like I guess with like HBCUs, like how many I guess how many programs and NFL like choose their NFL like teams based off that. Like I think about Grambling, how many Grambling fans are like Buccaneers slash Commanders fans because of Doug Williams. Same thing with like Southern, like the first guy that comes to mind to me is like Aeneas
And
Brown.
Neas
Or Aeneas
Williams.
Williams, Aeneas
Yeah,
Williams, yeah,
Neas
Aeneas
Williams.
Williams, jeez, yeah, Aeneas Williams. Even like Delaware State, like I'm a Niners fan. Even like John Taylor comes to
Yeah.
mind with like Delaware State. So it's like, but I
Yeah.
don't know how often that is a
Yeah. You're
thing
not
because I
gonna
would
get too many. I don't
assume.
think you're gonna get too many Delaware State slash. I mean, maybe from that era, you might. I wouldn't doubt that. Uh, all in all, especially in today's, well, I guess this is a natural transition to Delaware State. Um, but that's so far removed, I think, to the current state of Delaware State fans. To about 30 years, 30 plus years. Um, I don't know if you're gonna get that compared to like some programs where they kind of had their you know best players scattered all over the league. Um, I would now you know I just suppose that to a place like Valley where I would imagine like I mean outside of you just being a Cowboys fan just by default, everybody's a Niners fan because of Jerry Rice, right? Like, but
Mhm.
I don't I don't necessarily know if HBCUs uh I mean maybe um I think multiple things outside of just the connection of a player in the pro program that they played for. I think there got to be several more ties to it, but you know I think South Carolina State. If we're talking about just for the purposes of the Brick City Classic, I think South Carolina State and uh, Morgan versus Morgan would have kind of more interesting tied in variables that suits the game than most matchups would.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because man, I think about like Norfolk State. It's like hard for me to like, other than like what you said earlier, like it's hard
Yeah,
for me to like build a natural connection with that
the
one along
the
with.
the only problem is now. Well, you know what? No, let me stop that. South Carolina State uh has a solid traveling fan base within the conference. I will give them credit. Uh, Even when they come up to Baltimore, they'll bring in at minimum 1,000 of their own. Um, so they and when they're booming, when they're on, it, times that by two or three or four more, and like they're here. Like we come in your trap, take over your trap. So no, I think if they were put in that position, they would meet the moment. Yeah, I do have faith in that. I think they would meet the moment. I know they would grunt their teeth, uh, especially the homegrown South Carolinians, but they would the folks who are part of the alumni base and just throughout the nation who are Bulldogs through and through. No, they'll come out to Jersey and support.
That's fair. I mean, it seems like they do have a really good fan base,
Yeah,
honestly. I mean,
yeah.
consistent record of success. I
I
mean,
mean,
why
even even if you look at the Celebration Bowl versus Jackson State, even though from uh, 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 a betting perspective, betting odds perspective, they were the severe underdog. They had, I mean, 60-40 crowd,
Oh, wow.
right? And that was the second, I believe, second largest uh, attendance in the bowl game's history to this point. So they come to travel if it means something to them.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense for sure. I guess that's a good segue to the last team, November 23rd. A date that we're both looking forward to for different reasons.
Are you gonna go to that
So
game?
which one?
November 23rd.
Oh yeah. I'm talking, well, I mean, Notre Dame Army, yes, I
Oh,
am.
that's the same game.
Yeah,
That's the same day.
it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can't be at two places at once. You gotta go to
Yeah,
you
I
gotta go
know.
to your folks. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I mean, in another year,
yeah.
possibly I'll put it on there. But yeah, like the Howard or sorry, Morgan State, the school in
Thank
DC,
you. There you go.
the
Thank you.
school in DC.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be honestly an amazing stage, really, for the rivalry, especially with it being the final weekend, because I know so. Man, it's just tough because I was about to say the Florida Classic being like the one rivalry that the MEAC has that ends the season,
That
with
that
with a bang.
that used to be well. I'll tell you this. We used to have multiple. We used to have the Florida Classic, which yeah, I mean for our deep South brethren was like the crescendo, but for our South Mid Atlantic, you had uh, the rivalry, the Carolina rivalry between A&T and Central. So those two games going into Thanksgiving week were just like, yeah, definitely. I mean, whatever reason they had us play Dell State, and like, oh my god, like it sucked. So I'm glad that we're not having to go out to Alumni Stadium in Dover because like I swear to you, like it's so windy and cold and just like shout out to Delaware State. I love y'all. I'm just saying like y'all know the conditions that y'all be playing in November. It's trash. All right. Like I don't like nobody wants to play in that. You don't even want to watch that. Right. But but I think now with the new MEAC, if you will, when it comes to garnering that attention for that uh, final game of the final week of the season. Um, I think uh, they're not our rival because they're beneath us. They wanna be so bad, but we're their we're practically their daddy. And when the son tries to uh, you know, come up in age and show their muster, sparks fly in the house, right? So I think these last couple of years sparks have been flying. But when dad goes to assert that grown man strength on son will understand. And I think um the uh palpable energy between the two fan bases over the last couple of years has definitely proven that. Um I I know for a fact now, especially with them being alleged champs, um, it would they would come out even more so in that region, which will force us to come out even more so. So it's almost like an arms race. So it's like fans, um, and that's probably, if I had to rate it, that's probably be uh, the best matchup. But then it takes away from the home and home. And like I've played where it was 2 years neutral, 2 years home, at their home, one at our home. And it was like my freshman year at Brownish Green, um, sophomore year in New York City, junior year in Chicago, which ironically, uh, Drew, like, what, at Soldier Field. I know like official numbers say something, but I swear they counted that too early. Because like if you look at, like, well, I mean, if you were there, out of what, 65,000 seat stadium, it was something like around 40,000 really were showed up. Like it was fairly more people than vacant seats for sure. Um, and then senior year, which was a night game, and actually it was our first night game at Hughes in like 4 years against them, and that was, oof, matter of fact, you go back and look at the highlights. It was booming. It was ruckus. So I think it was raucous in both cases, both at Green when we played there my freshman year, and at Hughes my senior year. And I think that's the only thing when you have us play at the neutral site, you take that away. And now that, ironically, I was, Josh isn't gonna like this because we're still top dogs. We're not trying to, we're not saying in the sense of like uh competition wise, but in the sense of where I would say the popularity power is in the conference is now north of the Potomac. Um, I think you want to build that up as much as you can because you also have the two biggest media markets in the conference um there as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if you were to do a neutral site, even though I'd still kind of be like, why are we doing neutral site even within you'd want to do a neutral site at Audi Field. You want to do a neutral site at I don't know if you want to do it at M&T, but maybe at Camden Yards, right? Like you something of the sort of where it's like very hyper localized and focused and building more uh, just fanfare uh, interest and intrigue for the region. But like I said, if I'm being selfish and thinking selfishly from a Morgan fan and former player perspective, I would love it. I love the home and home because you always can talk smack of, see, our stadium is better than yours. You guys have outhouses. You guys have, you say you're $1 billion school, but looks, never mind. It looks like General Howard just put these stands up. Like just hey, hey kids, have some fun because you haven't really experienced that ever before. So like here's something to start with, and you guys just kept it ever since. Like, but I know. I'm sorry. Get you out. I'm gonna get you fired on your own show. but no, I think if I had to rank them, it would be uh the school in DC one. I'll probably have two, because I talked myself into it. Probably us versus South Carolina State two, um, Norfolk third, uh, us versus Hampton fourth. Um, I'll I'll do Lincoln versus us fourth, and then fifth would be us versus Merrimack. If that was how it was to go.
Yeah.
And then we forgot to mention, ironically, I mean, I know they have down years, but from a regional component wise, uh, Stony Brook, we do play
Oh,
them,
right.
and I think they would make the trip. You know, it's traffic wise, it is kind of like a sucky, interesting, hour and a half drive, to just go 10, 12 miles, but like, or maybe 15, whatever it is. But like, I think we'd have they would, if they're willing to go down to Monmouth, I think they'd be willing to go to Newark.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I also feel like too, like them going to Monmouth, like I mean, that's like not by choice. Like now that they're conference
It's
mates.
not right, correct. It's not by choice. However, though, if I'm going by NFL Network, you don't have to go all the way down to the Jersey Shore. Like you could, if you want to, you could just go right back to drive right back home after the game is over, or you could stay the night across the river. Like you could, so you have that option.
Mhm.
Whereas like you're kind of stuck once you get, if you're too tired, you're kind of stuck to want to drive, from the Jersey Shore all the way back to Long Island. But I think I probably put them, hmm, just above Norfolk.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I didn't add them. I didn't add them, I guess, to my list because just them having to give up a home game. Like I don't think you're gonna pry a home game from Stony
No, they're
Brook's
not. They're
hands.
not. I'm sure they're happy as hell that the fact that we didn't have to play us for homecoming last year. But I find it real interesting that, like, you know they didn't want to. I don't know. I mean, they had they don't want to replay the game, but like, see y'all 24. Like, I don't know. Like, I just all right, whatever. Like, we're gonna whip that ass in it. Whatever. Like, but if we're just going by, yeah, I don't. And that's a whole other thing. Like, I don't know of any in conference game. I think it's highly improbable for in conference game wise. Any of those teams that we mentioned, whether it's Norfolk, the school in DC, uh, or South Carolina State, would want to give up that as well, because you're talking about trying to gain an edge over your in conference opponent, and it's already tough as is, where you already played a 6 or 7 game out of conference slate. You know that you don't know how many. You're not going to have too many home games out of that 6 game or 7 game slate. So uh, I think they would try to keep it best as possible, the amount of home games that they do have, um, especially within conference.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree too. And I think the optics as well for the CAA, like if you're a CAA program, even though Albany went to Hughes, I feel like CAA programs like see themselves, the way that they perceive themselves is like I'd say Missouri Valley, Big Sky, like a big
It,
three conference. I
yeah,
mean,
they do, but I think, ironically, both times, Morgan and Albany played each other. Albany played each other. It was torrential downpour, both in Albany and in Baltimore. So I don't know what that says about when both teams play each other. But you know, I feel bad because I don't really. all week long they was talking about how the weather was going to seem god awful and stuff like that. So I don't know how much of a deterrence that was for their fans to make that trip anyways, right? Like they made the trip for Idaho, so what would prevent me from thinking that they would have made the trip to Baltimore outside of torrential downpour, which they probably already assumed that they were going to win. Like I think certain factors were at play, and little did they know they almost freaked around and found out, right? So um, I think um, I think I think and ironically another team. Um, I'm mad that they did it to us, but I was impressed by their fanfare and support of their team to travel was Holy Cross when we had the home and home those years back with them. Uh, they, I mean, I remember vividly, like I said, only only time I've ever seen at Hughes Stadium, uh, folks of the less melanated, literally grilling brats, at 10:30 in the morning and hearing ACDC above above the parking lot garage that oversees Hughes. And I'm like, wait, am I am I sure about the right shit? But like it was different and it was like awesome. It was like, wow, like they're ready to go. And it's 10:30. We have a 1 o'clock game, like so, you know, I say that with caution of don't count some schools out because depending on the circumstance, I think they would be excited to play at not only a venue, but if you have the NFL network backing that national TV exposure, um, along with whatever financial incentive, I think it would be pretty enticing for um, our PWI counterparts.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I mean, like especially like the exposure and everything. I mean, just a chance to like do something different because I mean
Yeah,
PWIs are lacking in, neutral site games. Like I always keep saying like that there should be some sort of like some bowls at the FCS level. Like it doesn't have to be a lot, but like a couple of games. Like, some town is surely gonna want to or some city surely gonna want to boost their economy a little bit. I mean,
yeah. I
but
think I think I think the mm, so I do wonder if currently, you know, excluding the Celebration Bowl, um, is it against the rules for postseason play if you don't make the national playoffs? I'm not sure. If it's not, then I agree. They should create bowls. You know, I also well, it's also tough to say, hey, they should have had an extra game on the schedule. But like when you have the scholarships, before you know, you'll have your fifth string walk on running back. Willie Teddy, who also was the backup's backup in high school, be your starter. So I don't know if that's also viable as well. But yeah, maybe like what I'm saying, like five. Could that be 10 teams, 5 bowl games? We don't have to have a whole 30. I mean, certain teams just no, y'all need to get the hell on and just think of what y'all did this past season. But I think 5 is solid because then you could say, hey, and who knows? I don't like what happens if that runs up against the playoffs in regards to viewership. Is it does it challenge it? Do they get absorbed? Uh, does a D1 FCS selection committee absorb those bowl games to expand the playoffs? I don't know, but I think that is interesting, and it goes to a larger uh, perspective of just the entire college football landscape with the potential, Super League, and thus spawning out of that the new FCS or old FC. I don't know, old FCS, I guess you will. But the mixture of G5s and whatever top FCS, current FCS opponents will be in there. Do we for the HBCU community? I think it's going to be a very interesting um, inward question of what do we do to stay in that or jump in that. I don't, you know, it's going to take some sort of investment, but I would then say, hey, if you was to have a Morgan versus UMass, right? Would they come to Red Bull Arena or take your pick? I mean, I don't know how Morgan versus Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo would care to come to New York City, but the point remains of like you have now a extra elevated element of former FBS teams who've grown their fan bases, and because of that exposure, probably are more than willing to play in a game like that, especially if your program is also on the FBS level. All right, so these is interesting times and interesting questions with the dynamics. As much as certain things remain the same, you're dealing with crazy volatile dynamics happening. So uh, yeah, and I also don't know. I also don't know if from an internal perspective for us at Morgan, if we want to lose. Like I personally would like to put like then I also look at it from you're losing a home game, right? And from an operational standpoint or operational costs or operational revenue opportunity, uh, how much are you like what is the weighing of getting that neutral site versus you could get a payday, home wise. Um, I don't know. Like I didn't, last year we had almost 10,000, just shy of 10,000 against Towson, which whether it was at Johnny Unitas or Hughes, probably was one of the bigger attendances in years. Um, and unfortunately we weren't able to then unfortunately like we had a rain out, but had we were able to have our homecoming, I think you would have seen maybe 12, 13,000, at that home game. And then if you win that and how that looks, you don't know what that carries over into then that Thursday night game against Central on national television, where you know unfortunately that was our first home game since the shooting that we had, right? So like the momentum of possible revenue growth or opportunity for those home games kind of got stalled out because of that uh, shooting. And thank God nobody was killed or severely injured from it.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. I mean, like you say, volatile times, and it's fitting that I guess you mentioned that today when the Super League proposal came out from that
For the
random
spring,
consult.
right?
Um, no, not for the spring. It was like a consultants group actually came out with a 70-team proposal for the Super League concept.
Oh, they did. Okay, okay.
So I can send you the tweet, but yeah, people were talking about it too. But yeah, like no one knows what the subdivisions will look like. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, I'd say like 5 years from now. Like it's kind of scary.
yeah. Like
But
does the current FCS become the new D2, right? Like,
yeah.
and if that's the case, like I don't, I personally don't want Morgan to be in the D2. I mean,
Mhm.
it's the reason why we helped create the MEAC, right? Like we didn't want to be D2 anymore. Um, and I know that it's going to be damn near impossible. I mean, I got a chance to literally for the first time one in state history have College Park come to Hughes Stadium and participate, practice, um, which has a whole bunch of racial and historical significance within themselves, even though they wasn't a joint practice, but it's still a lot to coincide with. But from their operations standpoint, just the difference of like a Big Ten unit versus a MEAC, right? Like, and it made me proud of our mom and pop effort. But you're just looking like when they came probably an hour and a half before their official practice start, it was like a team of like 50 people, you know, and that's just, I'm just thinking about 50 people, not athletes, just people. That's overhead. Like how much money, that's at least $40,000 a pop. Like you start doing the math, you're like, oh my god, like, there's levels to this, right? Like, so I have a hard time ever seeing. I don't want to put any limits to us, but I have a hard time ever seeing us getting into that Super League. But if we can't get into that Super League, at least have us still be considered in the realm of okay, they still play big boy football or whatever have you, right? Like even I think a lot of in this era especially, um, and I think my college years kind of definitely set that course in motion of like there used to be a time where regardless, even if it was you were playing D1 AA, D1 ball was D1 ball, right? Like yeah, the only difference was that you're playing bigger bigger venues, and all that. But like D1 ball is D1 ball. Everybody respected it. I think when '07 came and they made that pure distinction of FCS versus FBS, and then like the years going into it, the subsequent years going into it, that then bled into when I played. It created this stigma of like, you know, yeah, you're D1, but you're not really. You know what I'm saying? And then also I think from a recruiting standpoint, it takes away um, from the opportunity and potential of getting uh, certain players because they don't view you as legitimate. Where even at a school, that's in the MAC, like a Kent State right now, because I think they're struggling, um, or Bowling Green, they could get a player, at we'll just do matter ratings at like 82% that really we should have, but because that kid doesn't view us as legitimate because we don't have that B, instead we have that C, he he doesn't want to go to that. He doesn't want to go to
Right.
a place like Morgan, right? So like, you know, if this whole landscape changes and now you have the group of five clumped in with the top FCS schools, I would hope that we do our part to be amongst those top FCS, and at least if we're not in Super League, well then we're in the next league, and that's people can understand like that's not a knock of shame. It's just in the dynamics of resources, right? Like, you know, you're talking about for the most part Flagstaff universities that's going to be in that at major states that's going to be in that league that for that many other schools just can't compete with. So I hope that we just do our part and not drop any lower levels or any lower levels of ideas in people's minds when it comes to competition.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, and I wish I could honestly like forecast, I guess, what would happen. Because I mean, as an Army fan, I'm not sure how many. I know I remember like reading like some Sports Illustrated op-eds like in my free time from like the '90s,
Yeah.
like a while back about them saying Army and Navy should join. I think either like the Yankee Conference or the Patriot League.
Yeah, which
And
was that was FCS back. That matter
yeah,
of fact, the between the Atlantic 10 and the Yankee Conference merged to create what we know as CAA, right? So like
right.
to me it's like, I mean, okay. So that was 30 something years ago. and now you're a product of a school that's FBS, right?
Yeah.
How how much do you feel like your school is FBS like versus other schools? Um, or would you, and off of that, would you rather be FCS?
So I would much rather definitely be FBS, and I think Army is definitely an FBS program more so than it would be whatever the subdivision would be, just because them and Navy and Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
they're all national brands. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's no national brands really in the FCS. I mean, aside from like, your well-known HBCUs and the Ivy Leagues, but even then it's like they're national brands because of either their history or like what they are as institutions, like
Yeah, yeah.
hardly, you know,
It's not
and I'm
athletics
not
related.
saying, yeah,
Yeah.
not athletics related, but it's like, I mean, it's just that like even then, like people, even when Army isn't, I guess, in their best, in their prime, people still go to the games because of, what the program means to, a lot of people. So
Mm-hmm.
with that, I just don't see Army fans being happy playing Georgetown, Lehigh, Lafayette regularly. Of course, you play them like,
You play
our
them in
Patriot
all the
League
other
game once a
Union
year.
Patriot. Right, right, right.
Yeah, but I don't see them being happy with that from a football perspective, especially since like, Army's never been a basketball school. Like we're still waiting for our first NCAA appearance. We're
I
still
know.
waiting.
I
It's
mean,
gonna happen. It's gonna happen one year. I'm
what
patient.
is
It's
it?
gonna
They said
happen.
1939 or something like that. They said it's
Yeah,
still
it's like I think it's like there's like 4 or 5 schools that have been Division 1 since the first NCAA tournament.
Grambling was right with you. Not Grambling. It was, I think it was, no. Grambling was right with y'all
Grambling,
until
they were in the never made the tourney club, but
yeah.
like there's like 4 or 5 schools that have been there from the start. Army, it's like Army, William and Mary. I think the
Yeah.
Citadel's another one, and it's like
Yeah.
there's like 4 or 5 from the start, but
There goes your fellow
we'll get there.
military academy. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, like I definitely think. I mean, I don't say we look down upon,
No, but no,
the
no,
schools,
no,
but
no. See, no. Be honest. Be honest.
yeah, no one's excited to see the Patriot League games. Even I like. I love FCS football, but I'm like, it was like this stretch like my sophomore year. It was like actually the year we won our first Lambert Trophy in 60 years since 58, and like there was still a 2 week stretch in late November. I think our last regular season game of that year before Navy was Colgate, and the week before that we had Lafayette, and I'm just like who wants this? Like especially in like November, like who wants, like, even though that was like probably one of the greatest like defenses Colgate had, one of the greatest defenses in the the modern era that year in 2018. But I'm just like, this is a waste of time. No offense to any Colgate or Patriot League fans, but it's like, yeah, I mean, so I definitely do think like we do kind of look down from a football perspective, our fellow Patriot League mates.
Yeah, and that's the very point of where I'm getting at, to where it's like at the end of the day, there's that stigma, or like that little brother type of uh patronizing of like, oh, that's cute, but you're not FBS, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Whereas like, I don't, if they do the Super League, this is no offense, unless like you guys get grandfathered in, I don't see a scenario of Army, Navy, or Air Force being a part of that Super League. And I don't think you guys much care to be in the Super League, as long as you guys have an opportunity of being able to play those teams. It doesn't really much matter if you guys are actually in it. And I think for me, that's how, you know how we don't have to, if we're in that realm, 120 team, 30 team realm, we don't have, you could pick your selection of schools you want to play, and you don't even have to play the Super League teams. So like, to me, like, at least you're still on equal footing in my eyes.
I mean, but even though in Super League, it's just hard. Like now, it's hard to form an independent schedule with a
Yeah,
couple Power
but well,
Fives.
now with y'all going to the eight, but like, to me, I'm looking at it from perspective of like, right, if you're doing a Super League, that means the AAC might split up, right? Some of the top teams
Yeah.
will stay, some won't. And if you guys are a team that don't get selected into the AAC, I mean, sorry, not AAC. If you don't get selected into the Super League, I don't think you guys are upset over it.
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I think Army knows like we value the independence, but like I mean, we face the reality. It's hard to have an independent schedule, and this is like the best option, while also still having like some sort of national schedule. And for me as a kid, like the way I look at it, it's like I just think about USF. Like, I mean, they were in the Big East when I was a kid growing up in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and like I would have loved for Army to be in the Big East. And like that's like tying ourselves to teams like USF, Memphis, trying to think who else, Tulane too, like, and all the private institutions that are also in the American. The American is very private institution heavy. Tulsa, Tulsa, Tulane, Rice,
Mm-hmm.
SMU just left. So it's like I mean, I feel like it's a conference that we align with well. So I mean, the Super League, like Army's gonna keep playing Army football. Army's gonna keep finding a way. The Army Navy game, of course, is first and foremost.
But like if say I guess from my perspective, like say a school like Morgan, right? We either stay in a whatever the new FCS or like get promoted to the new FCS through our investments or whatever have you, you would look at us more so as equals than as a little brother, right? Like you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do, and I do agree with that because I look at some of the home and homes we played. Like we've done home and homes with Georgia State. They're a startup. UTSA, they're a startup, and I think as well. It's like it's as long as like you're in that classification. ULM, like the ULM series, I know is a
That's
pandemic
and
game.
ULM still has FCS. ULM ULM probably has about the same sort of facilities as, I mean, it's slightly better, but when I mean like capacity and all that, probably about the same size as Valley, right? Like, yet because they have that FBS moniker attached, Army going to ULM, like I don't, there's no way in hell if I was y'all AD that would happen, right? But like just simply because it's FBS, it's like this unspoken like okay acceptance that okay, well we'll play there, and I'll be there, and okay, keep moving, like I don't know. You wouldn't dare come to a huge stadium right now because we're FCS,
Yeah, pretty
but
much.
I'm
Yeah, exactly.
but I'm pretty sure you would have an issue. And matter of fact, probably a nice, interesting national, Battle of Baltimore game where like you guys wear some sort of like War of 1812 uniforms, against us and beat our ass. But like it's either here nor there. Like like if we were the old, whatever the old FCS or whatever new sub FBS, you guys would say, okay, we'll come to y'all and play y'all, and that's that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think about a team like Kennesaw State because like stadium capacity is everything too. Their stadium is only like 10,000, even like Sam Houston.
No, I think it's
Um,
less. I think it's 8.
oh wow,
Yeah,
geez.
I think they're actually smaller than us. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
that's why
still.
to me it's just like now. Granted, they do have, I think, close to 20,000 students. So like, or 25,000 students. So like, the student activity fees help a lot. But yeah, from a facility standpoint, nothing special, nothing FBS worthy in my eyes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just I don't want to use the term like convoluted, but it's everything's just so like influx in motion, and it's like it's hard to really tell like what I guess what delineations there'll be really.
Yeah,
So you bring up like really good points too, just about like honestly, I mean like schools like Kennesaw State like that really didn't seem like that they would be FBS, but I mean just getting that name, I guess, in this window is just so important and everything. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I know we discussed like a lot more than we said, and
and went on
we
tangents.
yeah, went on so many tangents.
Probably like
But it
your
was a
worst
great time.
guess.
No, oh, no, I enjoy it. I just feel bad for you because you're on the Eastern time zone. Like it's the night's
Oh, it's all
young
good,
actually,
brother.
and
It's all good.
yeah, the night's young out here in El Paso, kind of. But
No, you just owe me. You just owe me whenever you do head up to Mikey Stadium. I told my fiance one day I'm taking her to West Point. Whenever you and your better half make your way to West Point, just you owe us a tour. That's all.
okay, yeah, that's not a problem. I can't won't be as extensive as like when I was a cadet because like I can't go to cadet area, but I mean
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
of
show you
course.
guys some things. I'll show you guys some things for sure.
Yeah.
So that I will hold true to, but I don't know when the next time I'll be at Mikey because I'm trying to check off other stadium visits and
Well, I definitely
yeah.
would want to go once you guys finish the renovations to the stadium.
I mean that sounds like an old head, but I don't like the renovations.
You,
I'm gonna go on the
you
record.
know,
I don't
no,
like
I
the
feel you.
renovations.
I get it. You know what? You know it's funny, and this will be our last conversation before because I know you want to close it. Like I told you on the internet, um, coming out of your aways, your visitors' locker room gave such a baseball feel to it. Have you ever been into your locker room? Have you ever seen
I
it?
have not. No, I never
Oh,
have.
really? So it's
But
something
I mean,
that. All right. So like, so my freshman year, um, all I can remember is like one is how to sell. You guys are definitely that's why you guys are the best in the world, I see, because you guys make sure the operating environment downrange is going to set to your parameters, right? So like it felt like the temperature was increased and no AC. Um, it like it gives us 1940s or 50s like locker room feel to it. It really does. Um, very brownish, um like smoke filled kind of type of aura. And then when you leave out of the locker room, you're going down kind of like a slight ramp, built-in ramp, to then go up. And when you come out onto the stadium, you make it like an immediate shoot an immediate left, and as you're coming up to like field level, or surface level, it's like you guys are like standing right there. The cadets are standing right there, and you enter onto the field. But like it definitely has like ghost of football's past in there. Like it's a very eerie but beautiful. Like wow, like this is a great feeling. Like
yeah, and I feel it's just kind of ruined, honestly, like with I guess the premium suites and everything, which is just like
I'm
it's
sorry.
like my thing. My thing
So,
is, yeah, it's
I gave that nice majestic feel to it. He's like, and I'm just like, yeah, it's just honestly ruined.
it's like maybe it's not ruined, but it's like my thing is like it's like all these old grads that have money to throw around. It's like I maybe they're old football grads. I don't know, but it's like I feel like we're Power Five Izing Mikey Stadium with like these club suites when it's
You
just like
definitely are. You definitely listen. I
uh,
would love to. I mean, I would love to see the contrast. If I ever got the availability and access, um, I would love to see. I mean, man, I do hope they keep that uh entrance exit for the away team. That's one thing. I hope they don't change that because it's something very unique to Mikey Stadium. And off and like and on top of that, I hope they don't because of the new concourses um within the within the away side. When I played y'all freshman year, you guys had Blackhawks that went over the
yeah.
stadium because it was opening to open y'all season, and I couldn't. We didn't see. I wasn't the captain, of course, but you could just feel. And I'm like, God dang, like like oh, we're really no, they're real soldiers, like like so to me it's just like I hope you could find a way to keep like the I guess the nature or structure of the building kind of hollow enough to where you could still feel that as an opposing team. Like you're just like in the awe of like what's all the pageantry and what's going on. You could hear the the cadets, pounding against against the facade of the stadium. Like it's definitely something unlike any other. And yeah, I hope because of the new renovations that element doesn't change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it will. Like, I just think the aesthetic will look different, the structure. But I mean, it's kind of cool that they have the tunnel, that they're gonna have the tunnel in between the core cadets. So I mean, like that's cool. But otherwise,
Oh,
I mean,
so they will have that. They will keep that.
that's yeah, that's the plan. The plan is to have on the cadet side the army run through essentially the
What?
core cadets. Yeah, that's the cool part of the plan. But it's just the club suites and
The home
everything.
team runs through there.
Yeah,
So
so
wait, they would
but
have to go, or would they change? Interesting. Are they going to change the home and away? Well, not home and away side, but like, are they going to do a walk around, a Black Knight walk around to?
I don't know. I honestly don't know what it's gonna look like. They might switch the sidelines, but um yeah, I'm honestly not too sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens when I guess when these renovations are complete. But yeah, like Marco, this has been great. Do you have
Uh,
anything you want to promote before
yeah,
we head off?
yeah. Well, if you have availability for your audience, please tune in on Monday nights to MD, which stands for Markham and Dave, Markham myself, and Dave, my co-host, on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Um, uh, on all your uh, big major social media outlets, but in particularly on HBCUnightly.com. Also, check me out on HBCU Nightly, hosted by Joshua Sim Sr. Every Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is also on HBCUnightly.com. Also on YouTube if you use that same name. And where we talk about HBC, not just HBCUs and HBCU sports, but things relative to the Black community, to the culture, or sometimes just nonsense. And you're looking for a good time, especially on MD. We're here for it. So you can catch me there. You can also catch me at Big Money Banks underscore on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Big Money Banks one on IG. So uh, yeah, that's pretty much. I think I gave everything out. Uh,
I think
I'm getting
so.
pretty good at it. I've been feeling awkward giving my own like shout outs for my handles and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, it's not honestly not a big deal. I mean that's why we're here, I guess, like for promotion of our product and a good conversation.
yeah,
But yeah, no, Markham, this has been great. It's great. Like it was great like the last time. I always enjoy having you on.
likewise.
Of course we went way over, but that's not a problem at all. But everyone, if you stuck around for this long, or if you had to take a break, whatnot, and come back to it later on, thanks for listening and watching. And until next, everyone. Peace, love, and soul from the Burger Popper.
See y'all.